Annie Bell Hannah was 27 years old when she vanished without a trace on the morning of April 10, 1952. She woke up like any other day, got dressed, and headed to her job at a Walgreens pharmacy in Syracuse, New York. She never came home. There aren't many photographs of Annie, but the ones we do have tell a quiet story. Under even minor restoration, you can see a young woman with a warm smile and bright eyes, a woman with a life ahead of her. Unfortunately, almost nothing was ever uncovered about what happened to her, and to this day, Annie Bell Hannah remains missing. Now let's jump forward several decades. It's July of 1988, and a 12-year-old boy is digging in his backyard when he uncovers something that will change his life forever. Beneath the soil are the skeletal remains of a young woman buried head first. Based on decomposition analysis, she is believed to have died sometime in the late 1950s to early 1960s, which was years before the boy's family even built their home on that land. Investigators were called, and after carefully examining the remains, they determined the manner of death was homicide. What makes this even more unsettling is that her body showed no visible signs of trauma. The ruling came down to the deeply suspicious circumstances surrounding how she was buried and where. She was most likely a teenager when she died. Her identity has never been confirmed, and she has since been given the name Ironical Point Jane Doe, after the town in upstate New York where she was found. You may not know this case by name, but there is a strong chance you have seen her face before. In the 1980s, forensic artist William Rodriguez created a clay facial reconstruction of the young woman. The result was striking and deeply unsettling. A pale figure with exposed teeth and wide-open eyes topped with a wig. It became one of those images that tends to linger in your memory long after you have seen it. A second reconstruction done in pencil offered a slightly different interpretation but carried the same eerie weight. The eyes in particular felt like they were looking right through you. More recently, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released a three-dimensional rendering showing the girl from multiple angles, and this version felt more human, more real, which somehow made it even harder to look at. Here is what makes this case especially haunting. This young girl disappeared sometime in the 1950s in a small, close-knit town. In communities like that, a missing child almost always leaves behind something. A newspaper article, a police report, a word-of-mouth story passed between neighbors, but there is nothing. It is as if she never existed, which has led many researchers to believe she was not from Ironical Point at all. She may have come from somewhere else entirely. And that is where Annie Bell Hannah comes back into the picture. Annie's workplace in Syracuse was roughly an hour and 20 minutes away from where Ironical Point Jane Doe was eventually found. The physical descriptions align in a way that is hard to dismiss. Annie was reported to stand between 5'2" and 5'5". Ironical Point Jane Doe was estimated to be between 4'10" and 5'5". Annie disappeared in 1952, and the post-mortem interval on the Jane Doe points to approximately 30 years prior to her discovery in 1988, which places her death right around the early 1950s. The timeline fits, the geography fits, the physical description fits. Is it possible that Ironical Point Jane Doe is actually Annie Bell Hannah? It remains an unconfirmed theory, but it is one that refuses to go away, and both cases remain unsolved to this day. In 1999, a blogging platform called LiveJournal launched and quickly became a popular space for people to share their thoughts, feelings, and personal stories online. Think of it as an early version of what social media would eventually become. For many users, it was simply an online diary. For others, it became something far more complicated. In 2003, a user going by the name Deia Day began posting entries describing her life as a female sex slave. Regular readers grew familiar with her writing. She described her relationship with a dominant partner she referred to only as her owner in vivid and sometimes graphic detail. The comments section told its own story. Readers were not just following along, they were encouraging her. One comment read that she was an adorable and gorgeous person, and that it was obvious the two of them loved each other deeply. On December 1st, 2003, Deia Day wrote her final entry titled "Locked Up Tight." She described doing household chores before her owner returned home in the early afternoon. What followed was disturbing. He secured a padlock around her private areas. She wrote about the discomfort in detail, but expressed a desire to please him, and worried that the padlock would not be coming off anytime soon. That was the last post she ever made. Later that same night, Deia's owner was found dead from a shotgun blast to the chest. What investigators uncovered next reframed everything. Deia Day was not a real persona. The person behind the account was a woman named Susan Anton. She had created the Deia Day Journal as an outlet for expressing desires tied to extreme forms of BDSM. The man she referred to as her owner was her real-life husband, Travis Anton, who was 33 years old when he was killed. Their friends and family had no idea any of this was happening. Susan was arrested but later released after a grand jury ruled that Travis's death was an act of self-defense. The exact events of that night have never been fully explained. But then the story took another turn entirely. It came out that the Live Journal account had actually been registered under Travis's name despite Susan being listed as the author. That single detail changed how many people interpreted every single entry. If Travis was the one writing the blog the entire time, then those glowing descriptions of him were not Susan's words at all. They were his own. A man writing about himself the way he wished his wife saw him. Susan later created a blog called Invisible Survivor, where she began sharing her own account of events, but it was eventually deleted without explanation. The question of who truly authored the Deia Day Live Journal has never been definitively answered. There's a video on YouTube uploaded by a channel called CPP Sonic that has accumulated nearly 3 million views. It is titled Prpani Numbers Station. The clip runs for just under 4 minutes and shows grainy black and white footage of a woman whose image appears distorted. Beneath strange electronic frequencies, she recites a sequence of numbers clearly and deliberately. When those numbers are run through the American Standard Code for information interchange, the message they decode to reads 2 words: evident agenda. The video was originally uploaded in 2006, and the version most people have seen is actually a repost. The original showed a darker cut where the woman appeared to be upside down within the frame. The phrase evident agenda was not random. It was a password. Specifically, it was used to access a hidden website that was part of an alternate reality game known as the Lost Experience. This ARG was designed by the writers and producers of the television series Lost to keep fans engaged during the break between seasons 2 and 3. Players who decoded the numbers and entered the password were brought to a site for a fictional organization called the Hanso Foundation. The intro video on that site featured a woman who bore a striking resemblance to the woman in the Prpani Numbers Station footage, so the origin of the audio is understood. The purpose of the password is documented.
Welcome to the Hanso Foundation, where you can experience all of the social and scientific endeavors we are pioneering to make your world a better place. On your left here, please choose any of our programs to see exactly what we're working on.
But the woman herself has never been identified. She has no name in the ARG. She has no credited role in any of the production materials. And the image in the video has drawn comparisons to other disturbing corners of internet history, including a photograph connected to a Japanese serial killer case. Whether those connections are meaningful or coincidental, nobody has been able to confirm. The woman in the Prpani Numbers Station remains unidentified. On March 12th of this year, a Reddit user posted a photograph with a straightforward question. They had seen the image on Instagram accompanying a short video about an urban legend called Class After 6. The photo showed what appeared to be a classroom full of students seated at their desks, and at the front of the room stood what looked like a teacher. The image had been edited in the style of a sensationalized thumbnail, complete with a red circle and an arrow drawing attention to the figure at the front. The Reddit user did a reverse image search and found multiple copies floating around online, but nothing pointing to a clear origin or explanation. The story attached to the image described a night class at an Indonesian university. According to the legend, the students arrived to find their teacher already standing silently at the front of the room. Shortly after sitting down, they received an email from their actual teacher explaining that he could not make it to class that evening. The students looked up and realized the silent figure standing at the front was not their teacher at all. Following the spread of this story, the university's public relations director felt compelled to make a public statement. He said that the rumors surrounding the photograph had damaged the institution's reputation and that there was nothing supernatural or even remotely strange about the image. The photo was said to have been originally posted to Facebook, but that original post has never been located. What circulated instead was a blurry screenshot shared between students over text message. Whether the figure in the photograph is a trick of the light, a misidentified person, or something the university would simply prefer people stop talking about remains an open question. The image continues to circulate, and the story attached to it refuses to fade. These are the kinds of cases that stay with you not because they are loud or dramatic, but because they are unresolved. A Missing Woman from 1952. A blog that may have been written by the man who died because of it. A woman on film whose identity no one can confirm. A classroom photograph with a story that keeps shifting. If you want more content like this, subscribe so you never miss an upload. And if any of these cases mean something to you, drop it in the comments below.